Hey folks, Tito, Jeff Thitoff here with the Buckeye Blitz. Follow me on Twitter at ThitHappens. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Check out all of our great Fan Stream Sports content. Lots of great podcasts, new shows being added all the time, entertaining and informative. I wanted to start off talking about something with the Buckeyes and I talked about it the last time we did a podcast about Chaz Coleman and how he's a kid from Warren G. Harding High School and was recruited heavily by Ohio State. He ended up going to Penn State last year as a freshman, playing for Jim Knowles, who had left Ohio State to go to Penn State to be the DC there. And didn't work out great for Penn State. Obviously, James Franklin fired. Jim Knowles also out the door. Knowles now at Tennessee. Chaz Coleman did very little last year on the field for Penn State. Followed Knowles to Tennessee. First, he wanted to talk to Ohio State, though. He had interest in Ohio State. Ohio State had an interest in him as well. But from everything I've learned, he chased the money, got a bigger offer from Tennessee, went down there. And almost non-existent, not around the program at all here in the offseason. The team had said he wasn't around. There was talk about vertigo. He had an issue with that, some injury issue, I guess. But then also there was another report he was just homesick. And now it looks like he's off the team completely. So kudos to the Buckeyes for not going in deeper on Chaz Coleman, because it doesn't look like it's going to work out for Tennessee. It certainly didn't work out for Penn State and did not work out either for Chaz Coleman. Colin Simmons, linebacker for Texas, who I think only had like 1 or 2 tackles in the game last year when Ohio State played Texas at the Horseshoe. Buckeyes won that 14-7 in the season opener. He said that he's very excited for this Ohio State game. This is what he said to On3. Second game of the season, all that nervousness, all that jittery's out the door versus last year was the opener. He said, "We're coming. There's business to be taken care of." He had 2 tackles is what it was. He said he was glad they have a quarterback that I'm ready to sack. What he mentioned last year, but turned out that did not happen for him. So anyway, Colin Simmons already getting – and look, for this – now the way that this all works, and Texas fans will tell you that if they didn't play Ohio State, if we didn't play Ohio State, if I hadn't lost that game, we'd be in the playoffs. If we had played some cupcake week 1, we'd be in the playoffs. No, Texas, you're not – you didn't miss the playoffs because you lost to Ohio State. You missed the playoffs because you lost to Florida. Big difference. The loser of this game will not be eliminated from the playoffs for sure. The loser of this game will still probably make the playoffs. But Texas fans who want to point to, look, we played a tough schedule last year because that's why no, you did not go to the playoff because you lost to Florida. That's why, Texas fans. Other news with Ohio State. There's some players I saw ESPN put up there were like the biggest, most important newcomers to the upcoming season here is across college football. And one of the ones, Earl Little Jr., safety for the Ohio State Buckeyes, who transferred in, and he's a senior safety. There will be he's replacing, and you can't replace him, but he's replacing Caleb Downs. But Earl Little Jr., though, is a very talented guy, a big-time hitter, I believe. And so we'll see. As long as Little, he had a minor knee procedure, I guess, in the offseason, but he should be fine when summer camp and everything opens up, when practices start up. But he is somebody I'm very excited about watching. Someone else I'm really excited about watching, Chris Henry Jr., another one on this list. He was ranked 51st. The fresh wide receiver, 6'5" and 205. Can't wait to see what he can do. And I shudder to think how teams will defend Ohio State in the red zone when you've got Jeremiah Smith and a 6'5" Chris Henry Jr., who can both win 50-50 balls. Hell, they can both win 20-80 balls. If it's going to the favor of big-time defensive backs, I'll still take my chance with Chris Henry Jr. And then also Jeremiah Smith, another one to keep an eye on. Somebody else missed some time also, like all the running backs seem to do in the spring practice era. But Legend Bay, he was the one who originally committed to Tennessee because his mom made him. And now he's at Ohio State, decided to flip to Ohio State instead. A lot of people are comparing him to Curtis Samuel as far as how they're going to employ him. They will use him as a running back. They'll put him in the slot sometimes. He's going to get the ball in his hands. He's an exciting player. I'm excited about that as well. Another thing I want to get into here, this Protect College Sports bill that is out there being bantered about. Protect College Sports Act is what it's called. And the Big Ten and SEC, no surprise, have not come out in support of it yet. The ACC has, the Big 12 has. Big Ten and SEC, though, they want to see more data, want to hear more about it before they're going to throw any kind of weight behind it. There's some things I like about it in there. The things about the 5 years to play 5 seasons And the transfer one time, you can do that also. There needs to be more than that too, because if a coach leaves, what happens there. And so those are a couple things that are involved in this that they are. And also, you can't hire a coach during the season. You can't steal someone. You can't poach someone else's coach during the season. Those are all things on there. There's a lot more that they want to know about the Big Ten and SEC before they go in full support of it. Look, the big thing I've been saying all along is that a lot of the problems with college football right now, a lot of the things that I'd like to fix, if you get a calendar, a streamlined calendar that they can all agree to, it could solve a lot of these issues, because the way the portal lines up versus some teams are still playing, some teams are in school. I mention this all the time. When Ohio State played Texas in the semifinals a couple years ago of the CFP, the year Ohio State won it. But when practice was going on for that game, for the Texas-Ohio State game, when there was practice going on, Texas was not in school. So they could practice a hell of a lot more to get ready for that game. Ohio State still had classes. They were in school. So they had to devote time each day to school, and they had limits on how much they could practice. Didn't affect the game, the outcome at the end, at least anyway. But that's the idea, though, an example of how the calendars aren't lining up. And the transfer portal, the calendar with that, it's a huge mess. If they can fix the calendars to where it makes sense, I think that would solve a lot of the issues we talk about with college sports. And maybe you don't need to get this whole Protect College Sports Act going at that point. Live with it a couple years with a good calendar, with a calendar that makes sense. Do it that way. And Ohio State then and the other, I think the college football powerhouses would be more likely to agree to something if we get that going first. All right, Jake Diebler spoke this week, Ohio State men's basketball coach. Anthony Thompson is a big-time player coming in, the big-time recruit coming in, the fourth highest Buckeye-ranked prospect in the history of 24/7 sports. He's behind Oden, B.J. Mullen, and Jared Sullinger. B.J. Mullins and Jared Sullinger. He is ranked higher than D'Angelo Russell, Malachi Branham, Deshaun Thomas, all players who played in the NBA. They all still be playing on Deshaun Thomas in the NBA anymore. But anyway, Russell and Branham are. Thomas did have a hot minute, I think, with the Spurs. Anyway, Anthony Thompson, last year at Western Reserve Academy, 24.9 points, 7.9 rebounds, 2.3 assists per game, and 35% on three-pointers. He's 6'8". Dude's a beast. He's going to be great for Ohio State this year. He's working out with Team USA, and here is Jake Diebler talking about that experience for Anthony Thompson.
I think it's great. I think it speaks to where our program is and, speaks to, I think, where it's heading, right? Because Anthony, winning matters to him, and player development matters to him. I think he's got a really bright future. This summer and off season is going to be really important for him because we're expecting him to play a major role for us. But he's got the personality and characteristics and work ethic to do that. As we've seen, you can look specifically in this program, but I think when you look just across the country, there's a transition period that high-level freshmen go through. I don't think he's going to be, any different, right? But I do think our job as a staff is to help speed that up as best we can to get him ready, for November and then really kind of January and beyond. So he's just got to continue. Why he's had the rise he's had the last few years is because he's a great young man who works extremely hard, and he's just got to continue to do that. Now that he's here in this building every day, I think we'll see that sped up in a big way.
We've had players come through for Ohio State that have started a bit slowly as freshmen coming in. I know that Malachi Branham, I believe, was the last one I could think of. Early on, he wasn't just because he was getting adapted to the game and getting worked into it. But then once he took off, he took off. Curious to see if Anthony Thompson will have that same kind of thing, or from day one he will just be outstanding. A player last year on a similar kind of thing there was Amari Bynum. And after the game on December 9th against Illinois, the final 25 games of the regular season last year, Bynum played fewer than 25 minutes a game just once, scored in double figures 15 times. Fantastic end to a season. Became more and more explosive and confident. You could see it all the way in through the NCAA tournament. You could see that, how much better he looked, how much more comfortable and confident he was. After the season, Diebler talks about the conversation he had to have with Bynum when he talked to Bynum about coming back to Ohio State and not entering the transfer portal. And here is Diebler talking about that conversation.
We talked about the importance of this offseason. And, that he's required, certainly for him to accomplish his goals, but for us to accomplish ours, he's required to take a significant jump. And the reason I'm so confident in that is because I saw the consistency he operated with all year long. And we saw, when you look at the last 10 games versus kind of the first 20 games and where he was as a player and the level at which he was playing, gave me great confidence going into the offseason saying, hey, like, that's a building block for us. Same thing with John Mobley. Felt like those two guys, that's where it started for us. And then we built it out around there.
So, Bynum thing, it's very real. He also mentioned, this is not, I don't know if I cut him on play for this one, but how, he essentially said there was poaching going on or potential poaching of players because Bynum, I believe he said, was approached. I know that Mobley was approached too, even though they weren't really in the portal. Mobley had originally, put his name in the NBA draft, test the waters. Now he's back, but those things happen. Ohio State also added some size in the transfer portal to the backcourt. Justin Pippen, one of the guard they got, who came over from Cal. They also added Jimmy Williams. They added Curtis Givens III. Here is Jake Diebler talking about adding that size to the backcourt through the transfer portal.
We also wanted to get bigger on the perimeter. So when you look at Justin, Curtis, and Jimmy, they all have size for the perimeter. That was important for us too. We wanted to get bigger. I think that'll help us defensively. All three of those guys are two-way players. That was another important part. We needed to be able to guard the ball better. And I think all three of those guys will help with that. It allows us to shift that third guard back and forth between being really big with Anthony, maybe Alex, or even at times as Amari develops, maybe shifting him down that way. Or we could shift it to three guards because Jimmy's a bigger physical guard. Curtis is a bigger physical guard. Justin's got good size. So we felt like getting more size and two-way play was important on the perimeter as well. I think Justin's experience and certainly production was important for us because we're losing a lot of production in Bruce on the perimeter. Jimmy, again, high-level production, and I think even what Curtis was able to do from freshman to sophomore year gets us excited about his jump from sophomore to junior year. So that was the approach, I think, on the perimeter in the portal is getting guys who compete and can guard the ball better and then also be able to shift around and play multiple positions on the perimeter for us.
So last year, by the way, Ohio State, look, I hope they knock it out of the park in the transfer portal. They've had times they haven't with Jake Diebler. Look at that first year. Hell, Aaron Bradshaw's on another team now, too. Went from Ohio State, for Kentucky, Ohio State, and then Memphis, and now I think he's at Tennessee State. Nonetheless, hopefully they knock out a couple. They knock a couple of these out of the park as far as the transfer portal goes. Michigan winning the national championship last year in basketball. This season just ended a few months ago, and Diebler was asked if it's more, is it more pressure on Ohio State having a Big Ten team win the title like that, especially being Michigan, or is it more motivation? And here's what Diebler had to say about that.
Certainly, we're trying to win a championship here, and we've gained some significant ground from year one to now, and everybody's not operating under the same speed, but we're trying to get there now. Like that's our goal. That's how we're operating. There was a process to get to this point, but we're excited to take off. That game for us is an important one. I said that this past season, like it didn't minimize the game, whether we won or lost. It's an important game every year, and it's going to be an important game this upcoming season. We're going to be playing twice, and we'll be ready and looking forward to those matchups. But right now we're focused on Ohio State and making sure we're doing everything we can every single day to push this program up. It's a fight in the toughest league in the country, but we're fighting hard and certainly aware of not just them, but the surroundings of our conference, right? Because I think you can look at a handful of teams in our conference over the last 5 to 7 years who have operated at a high level, and that's what we're pushing to become.
So, and the fact that you heard them say that you're playing Michigan twice this year, yes, that's something Ohio State and Michigan both push for. There's a handful of teams you play twice every year with the home and home. Some you only play on the road, then some you only play at home because of this this two huge Big Ten conference with 18 teams. But Ohio State and Michigan have both been pushing for, look, we want to play each other twice a year. So that's why that's happening. This past season, Ohio State finally got back into the NCAA tournament. And Jake Diebler was asked about that, the importance of that, especially about recruiting now, because when the tournament's going to increase now, you're adding more teams to it now. We get, I think 76 is the number now. But so it's easier to make the tournament now. I've always said the baseline for Ohio State should be make the tournament. That should happen every single year. Ohio State's men's basketball team should make the tournament every single year. Sweet 16's a great year. But just an okay year, a normal year, should be make the tournament. Here is Diebler talking about the importance of making the tournament this past season.
I think winning certainly helps when you can talk about that and recruits watched in postseason. That's important. But also, when you look at the development of a player like Bruce Thornton, that helps too. People are really excited about what's next for him. So those two things, winning and player development and recruiting, have been great for us.
And then I'll play one more for you here. And Diebler was talking about how, last year, look, they should have beat TCU. Should have happened. Didn't happen. But Diebler was talking about how is this team better equipped to advance in the NCAA tournament. Here's what Diebler had to say.
Well, I think it's our size, our versatility, and honestly, our depth. I don't think we were deep enough last year, and I think that was I think that became a real issue with some of the injuries we dealt with. Right. And so there's a lot of factors that go into being able to build some depth. And I think we've improved in those areas that have allowed us to put together a roster that has more depth. But those three things, I think, are positional size, depth, and then the ability to play different ways. We can shift in different directions, both in our front court and our back court, which I think should serve us pretty well.
So he's optimistic. The team should have advanced last year. They should have made it. I thought they were a sneaky, maybe Sweet 16 team, but they didn't lose in the first round to TCU. But this year, not even Bruce Thornton's going to be obviously significant. There's got to be points they've got to find. But Mobley, when he gets going, he shoots with a lot of confidence too. Some of the shots he made in the last few games last year were just amazing. Biden with more confidence, Anthony Thompson coming in, more size. It's all setting up for a nice season for Ohio State basketball in a brutal Big Ten. So I'm sure we'll hear more from Jake Diebler throughout the offseason, but that's it for today's Buckeye Blitz. Follow me on Twitter @ThatHappens, folks. Go check out all of our great shows, Fantasy Sports. Great new content being added all the time. And follow me on Twitter @ThatHappens. We'll talk again soon, and go Bucks.